While browsing through the artwork section of Detroit Become Human's extras from the game menu, I noticed quite a number of significant changes consolidated to a single recurring theme. Naturally, the default race will be Caucasian. Because art is a reflection of reality, the first instinct is to mimic one's own identity, especially when the collective identity, or egregore, if you will, recruits a majority of Caucasian artists. What I observed while perusing those striking pieces not only provoked disquisition on the presentation of race, but also theories regarding in-game narrative, elaborating on certain aspects of economy in the midst of android-human conflict. In game design, a sibling of the tech industry, Caucasian males account for most, if not all, of working personnel. By that very factor act, it might be expected that the designers create character appearances similar to their own physical identity, at least when regarded as a default impression. Two characters in particular were subject to ethnic transition. Their genders remained the same, but their racial makeup was inverted. For both characters, the original design is inverse with the final design. These two characters are Alice and Amanda. Naturally, there were a number of other characters I noticed with notable changes in appearance. However, the main difference is in physiognomy rather than racial modification. Alice is the child of Todd, a drug addict whose routine fix is snorting red ice, a substance that curiously resembles crack cocaine dyed in the shade of blood red. Without spoiling anything, we'll simply say that Alice is technically younger than she seems. Yes, much younger than her 9-year-old countenance and comportment. Alice is fair-skinned with straight brown hair that would fall a few inches past her shoulders, if not styled in a ponytail. In the concept art, it seems Alice was originally considered to be of African American descent, possibly Hispanic, or an admixture of Afro-Hispanic, given how ambiguous the depictions of her were from the artworks. The features for concept Alice are slightly more ethnic, with straight hair segued to curly frizz. It is worth noting that there was a greater selection of work to peruse from the artwork section compared to the downloadable content of a digital art book titled The Art of Detroit Become Human. Many of the works seen in the artwork sections can also be seen in the digital art book. The designs were sparse for both Alice and Amanda, the former of whom only had one image of difference from the art book. An additional image was found while searching that was neither printed in the art book or artworks tab. From general perception, Amanda is not who we immediately recognize in the concept art. Whereas concept Alice can be recognized from her placement by Kara's side, when alone, inside the layout designed for her room, beneath her tent fortress, or with other signifiers like toys or clothing, concept Amanda can be recognized by attire, but an initial thought might be one of a blank name tag. Again, for concept Alice, the facial features appear to remain similar when given a side-by-side analysis. Amanda, however, is patently white compared to our black and dubious antagonist. Right up to the stark white, spiky follicles of hair atop her head, concept Amanda appears more Helen Mirren or Meryl Streep than Simbi Kali, the face and voice of the Amanda we see through Connor's software. In one outfit illustration, concept Amanda's hairstyle defies the punk with a neat, almost bob cut. Ignoring the stance of her feet, which resemble hooves, perhaps we might recognize her as Amanda by the symbolism of this styling. Accompanied by the Hunger Games' capital of Pan Am fashion and hoof-like stance, to be interpreted in relation to someone with malicious intent. In summary, your average austere figure of authority.
We engineered an android revolution, and now we control its only leader. Congratulations. You represent an immense success for CyberLife.
The common theme to gather here is that the designers, while not identifying as female, still defaulted to a Caucasian template relevant to their own physical constitution. However, it begs the question as to if minority employees would employ the same knee-jerk reaction. Would it confirm the blueprint of Caucasian as default, male or female notwithstanding? Or would they too model a character, consciously or unconsciously, similar to their own phenotype? Nevertheless, what really captured my intrigue, more than the obvious priority of design employed for our star trio, more than the clear deviation of appearance for Simon North, and to a lesser yet still marked degree, Josh, was the significance of seeing concept art of Carl's home, followed by him, settled in the seat of his paraplegic machine, a paintbrush in one hand and a stained towel in the other, with an adjacent tray of disorganized brushes and other utensils. Carl Manfred is a retired painter. Occasionally, he still paints and visits art events, but ultimately, after the accident, his workload had begun to wane. In any case, a theory came to mind regarding his profession. As an artist, it should stand to reason that his employment status was fairly protected. As far as current developments were concerned, no android was capable of creating something from nothing, to which art classified as a general rule. Sure, they could replicate an image, create a carbon copy as it were. However, this ability of recreation was, as evinced by Marcus, his android caretaker, limited to producing an exact, perfect likeness to any of the paintings that Carl had created from his own mind's eye. Even with deviancy, it was yet to be observed if androids could display hints of imagination. Emotion seems to be the primary factor of unprecedented behavior, but imagination required the capacity to produce images of people, places, and things that didn't exist or had yet to exist in reality.
It's 10 a.m.
To not further digress from the main point of interest, my thoughts concerning Carl and his vocation are expressly in relation to the major conflict between androids and humans regarding employment. We see it in the first moments of gameplay as Marcus, walking through the local park within Capitol Park, nestled within the commercial and entertainment district of Greektown, Detroit. From Marcus's perspective, we are foreshadowed with his programmed occupation when the first human he strolls past is identified as an elderly man receiving assistance from his own android caretaker, the aforementioned function of Marcus's design. From here, we continue down the restricted path of locomotion, where digital red walls appear within any android's line of vision, software reminding them that they are expected to follow a linear route if deviating from this path. The duality of man is evinced when you do follow the straight and narrow, leaving an echo to confront a brutal facet of reality, where another human is accompanied by their android. In this case, the human is not so kind and amicable towards his android during their morning exercise. After Marcus is shoved aside, the innominate android is given harsh reprimand. Marcus, unperturbed, as accustomed to his impersonal existence, continues ahead to the crosswalk. Here, the landscape expands to the bustling district, where the canvas of Detroit becomes awash with vivid color, both subtle and glaring. If choosing to explore a bit within the boundaries of your mental sandbox, you'll find the first odd strokes of the painter's frustration. To the left, several androids are observed in the pit, working on network infrastructure. To the right, there is a single person, dressed in what appears to be military fatigues, sat against the railing entrance of the park. A cardboard sign is both beneath and placed before them with a poster that reads, "Ban androids. Androids ruin our country. We want jobs." Just one among an immeasurable homeless population throughout Detroit. A sheer volume of unemployed citizens that is steadily increasing with each new manufactured model or series distributed by CyberLife. It is an open secret that humans express contempt towards androids due to the fact of androids threatening to usurp human labor, if not replacing humanity along the special hierarchy. It is an understandable expression of human psychology where fear of the unknown appears as a shared, recurring theme. In the beginning, people were skeptical when the first ever android was released commercially, a familiar face from the menu screen, named Chloe. However, the warm, inviting hostess we see is actually an improved version of the original model.
By the way, I'm an ST-200 model. I thought you might be interested to know that.
This significant difference can be seen from the visit at Kamsky's place in the chapter Meet Kamsky. When Connor and Hank seek the founder and former CEO of CyberLife himself as a last resort for solving the case of deviancy affecting androids. Deviancy that is expressed by the two Chloes in the pool. These Chloes are a mirror image of who greets us each time we launch the game, awaiting with new quips. In contrast, the Chloe who greets at the door, fully clothed, is the predecessor, a model that, as far as we can discern, is immune to deviancy. We can surmise that its programming is too inchoate to accept conversion if presented.
What do you really want?
As confirmation, Kamsky addresses this Chloe model as it. In addition, we may also suspect that Kamsky may have already experimented with deviancy to the best of his equally limited knowledge, given that only specially engineered androids are able to convert or infect other androids with the virus. The two Chloes, while deviant, do not possess this ability. So who, if not any ordinary deviant, would be capable of enacting this unprecedented shift in purpose?
Is the desire to be free a contagious disease?
It all leads back to art and the tools for framing, not only figuratively, but literally. The significance of a paraplegic painter is emphatically illustrated here in connection to employment. Carl Manfred is a fitting example among the lucky few whose jobs were not threatened by the transition to automation.
What are you reading?
Oh, Keats's Odes. It's one of the books he recommended.
So, what do you think?
Well, there's a lot of sadness in his poems.
Keats was in love. There's nothing like love to make a man feel miserable.
Artists possess an ironic advantage against those who pursued the more lucrative and/or practical career paths. Eventually, doctors, lawyers, engineers, and accountants, to name a few, will find vacancies occupied almost exclusively by android candidates.
Our androids are already replacing humans in many fields. For example, they represent more than 80% of all university professors and 63% of all medical staff. Tomorrow they'll replace our soldiers, and who knows, maybe one day, our leaders, to make the best decisions in humanity's interest. Come on.
As Kamsky said, when still a neonate aspiring entrepreneur, even the leaders may find themselves unseated by backsides carrying a more formidable weight of skill and endurance. But artists, or anyone who studies or versed in humanities, will likely be the relics of human employment, lucrative and practical, with instruments necessitating the irreplaceable need of human hands and faculty. Still, we have to ask, to question the certainty of irreplaceable. Will artists be secure in their unique capabilities? Can they be confident in the hope of never having their passion, their livelihood, a basic practice for survival, become null and void? As deprived and begging in space as the streets that remain? Yes, no, maybe so.
So, what's your verdict, Marcus?
The answer, much like the aftermath of successful revolution, is unknown. With variables like these specially engineered androids to consider, unpredictable in function and form, there may well be the possibility of androids ultimately developing the means of tapping into some unexplored section of their program. A dormant circuit of unusual activity, power, or energy channeled from an unplugged source. Perhaps the real threat of an android uprising was never the inescapable emergence of deviancy. What contends to be a tiny splotch of ink bleeding through the system will leave a permanent spreading stain, circulating at such an unforeseen rate as to make the complacent dizzy with humility. It's the inevitable adoption of one facet of human nature that eludes deep learning efforts for artificial intelligence. A fleeting hint of childhood optimism resting as a light brush along the shoulder of discount John seeds who compensate the lack of ambition with a false sense of justice, presenting protest as a spectacle. A measure of hope from starving artists who persist to view the world through a technicolor lens, supplying androids with a sigh of relief, to dream the impossible dream, a final breath of fading life to transfer, where the machine is not accused as a thief.
Carl, they're killing my people. I don't want to answer violence with violence, but tell me, what choice do they give?
Being alive is making choices between love and hate, between holding out your hand or closing it as a fist. I don't have any easy answers, Marcus. You have to accept the world as it is, or fight to change it. You're my son, Marcus. Our blood isn't the same color, but I know part of me is in you. When the world falls into darkness, some men have the courage to lead it out. You're one of those men. Face the event.